Mama is gracious and nature is patient and never excludes. No, 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 no. We are coming home. Oh, no, 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 no. For years we were raped and claimed and owned while you sat on your throne. I learned to give away my power. The men who take my flower leave a hole inside my soul. Now collectively we're feeling, we're hurting, but we're healing. It's time you ought to know. And now I hear her calling and see a kingdom falling. The queens are coming home. The queens are coming home. We are coming home. The queens are coming home. We are coming home. The queens are coming home. We are coming home. Coming home. Coming home. Coming home. Don't get me wrong, I still believe in good men with reverence for women who will shower us in gold. But the patriarchal systems fuck the women's wisdom, and now it's getting old. The female intuition was forced into submission for fear of the unknown. And now I hear her calling and see a kingdom falling. The queens are coming home. The queens are coming home. We are coming home. The queens are coming home. We are coming home. The queens are coming home. We are coming home. Coming home. Coming home. Coming home. We are coming. 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 Coming home. Coming. We're coming home. Coming. I'm coming home.
Hello, Queens. Oh my God, I am just loving this track so much right now by Malka Russell. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Felt like an appropriate opener for today's session, considering what I'd like to open with, as far as our dialogue goes, just acknowledging who's in the room here. Also that Elizabeth once again has a bird on her heart, forever taking care of little creatures. Oh my God, you're the best. Oh, little peep. Sweet. Yeah, so welcome back. This is our intimate circle who we've been pretty consistent with, and I'm appreciating that rhythm. Also, Miriam, good to have you here. We are live streaming, so I just want to preface this with saying, like, whatever you share here, as vulnerable, as transparent, as authentic as you want to be, it's all welcome. And just know that this is a recording that is to be shared with the world, that part of what we're doing here is taking this conversation out of the shadows, out of the corners and crevices and caverns where these councils have been safeguarded for millennia, and bringing it out into the world to be able to have these transparent dialogues. And the arrow of today that I want to open with is really about that, like the historical aspect of women's work. And it came through, I think, Megan, you were kind of like just barely touching on it a little bit last week. And there was so much that can be said without saying too much, right? Because I think we all feel the gravity of what his history has done to womb holders, to women, to our culture. And we're in this moment of reclamation that's so exciting. And in order, it feels like, to really move forward, it's important that we look back. So with that being said, I was looking over our notes from the initial council about the council and how Cassandra started to really like bring forward this thread of Lilith and the Black Madonna and the original mother wound, and how so much of what we're facing right now, especially when we see the manifestation of rape and war on the planet, and that which we're wanting to be an active antidote for with these councils, is that it comes down to this mother wound, and to the way that the female figure has been written out of the story, the importance of the female figure, besides like there's the whole spectrum of the Madonna and the whore, but to see like the integrated mother, lover, priestess, goddess written back into culture, I think is a really important piece of this work. And it's relevant for me right now because I just got done making a ceremonial shirt with my son, my 4-year-old. We have his first teepee meeting since he was 6 months old. We're going to be back in the teepee this Saturday. And we made him, there's like a traditional ribbon shirt that you wear in the teepee. And we were making this ribbon shirt and like hot glue gunning rainbow ribbons onto his little button up collared shirt. And it was already such a magical moment. And then he chose in that moment to be like, Mommy, can you tell me a long, 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 long story about why boys have penises and girls have yonis? And at first I was like, babe, I'm concentrating. Let me think for a sec. Let me find the story. And he was like, are you ready now? Are you ready now? Are you ready now? So finally I was like, okay, I guess this is the perfect thing that we could be doing. And so I got to share a whole creation story about the mother, father, creator, and how there's yin and yang and masculine and feminine principles, and they manifest through our bodies, and that we all have both energies within us, but we have these physical qualities that have different purposes, and the miracle of life that we can create when the masculine and feminine comes together, like without going into details, I got to like essentially start that dialogue with him today while making this rainbow technicolor ceremonial shirt. And it was really sweet because I noticed myself even like kind of saying like the creator and he did this and he did that, and like a little bit into the story I was like, I'm gonna bring in the goddess and like make her a part of the creation story too, and just felt really sweet. And then coming towards this council, I was like, I don't know that I trust this council so much. The conversations have been so potent these recent weeks. And so I just want to kind of place the word there to start of addressing this historical wound and the way that the goddess has been systemically erased from culture, and then also like how it's being revived in these times, and anywhere we want to go from there. I'll place the talking stick in the middle, and happy to be here together in council with y'all once again. Feel free to come off mute and bring your voice into the circle as you feel called.
I think it's funny that you chose that. And then I chose to bring some cards with me because I was just messing around, kind of like getting my focus on. Sometimes I have a hard time getting my focus in like the present and what I'm doing. So playing with something with my hands is always like the way. And the cards I picked were my animal messages cards, but I knew that each card was going to be linked to these Mary Magdalene cards I have. And the deck, the book itself got packed somewhere, so I only have the deck. I've loved the deck so much, I've kind of been like pushed to like play with the deck without being so connected to the book. So the first card I chose, which I thought was really interesting, was, and I heard it within me as I was pulling, of like, this is where we've been as a feminine, like this is the past, this is like the middle, where we're at, like the choices we're making, how it's moving. And then the last one was for kind of like the outcome, something like, it always can change, right? And the first card I put was silent. The first card I pulled was silence and learning how to speak from the heart. And I so feel that. I so feel that. And the thing that it says on the card that I really love is love has already won. And the card that it connected to was the peacock. And the peacock for me has always been this like showy energy, right? Of like needing to show something big, something brass, to be connected to love, like to be loved, to be seen, almost even. And so the way I chalked this up was just how much it's been about the outlook, what we look like, what's on the outside, the physical, and not necessarily what's here, what's inside. And to know that even now, when we're speaking of creation or like the story of creation, I myself will have to find myself weaving that story back in. It's almost like I've been taught this story so many times, lacking the goddess, lacking her story within his story, right? And I will have to find myself come back and grab on and say, wait, hold on, wait, let me weave this together. It's interesting. I didn't notice until having kids, until being able to be someone who's shared this story myself, like as the elder in my family system, right? Or the mother. And I really liked that you brought that up, because I feel like that's really where we've been, right? Is it's been silenced, it's been quiet, it has been beneath the surface. And so the second card I pulled, I really loved. I even love what's on the card. It's like community. There's all these people in circle coming together, and it's represented by the red thread that keeps us all together. And what I love is it's the energy of good recognizing good, like being able to see the good. And we've been talking about that so much lately, of like, okay, yes, this all is a lot. It's a lot to witness some of the just things that have come from the lack of the mother, to be completely honest, or that's what it feels like. And it's hard to see. But in our own lives, we've been doing our best to, or at least I have, to see the good in what's around me, especially in relationship to the masculine that's surrounded, and to know that I can come from a not necessarily good place, but I like that calling up place that we've talked about so much. That's really continued. And the card I got was the cheetah, which is the decision is made by unwavering action and followed out by unwavering action. And man, is that not what this feels like every time we meet, is action put forth towards something. Every time we meet here, I remind myself of, dang, you're doing this. Like I'll think I'm not doing enough or something. And then I sit here with you guys and we have these conversations and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that, like, aha, that revelation just in an instant of like what a difference this is that we're doing right here, and how much I do feel like that lioness, that cheetah, that energy of like, no, like beautiful as is, and I'm going to keep moving forward. And yeah, it might be a little messy and it may come across a bit fierce too, but whatevs. Like I can always bring it back around to love. Like I can always love for myself, love for humanity, love for each other. And the last one I really loved, it's the fourth power, which is the I am the beloved, which I feel like we're all finding this. This is the end game, right? Of like for us all to see ourselves as something so beautiful and divine, men and women in general, like, and to just treat ourselves that way. I mean, what a blessing that would be to the entire planet if every single one of us were seeing ourselves that way. Like I'm always praying for that. I'm always placing that out there. And the animal was the whale. And so this was where I wanted to leave it, of like, you talk about this. I love how I'm able to weave this back here, but you talk about this forgotten piece, right? The mother, the Black Madonna, the Lilith, the buildings built on top of sacred sites so that they're used for, not what they're actually there for, not what they were originally created for, but yet you still feel the feeling. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, gone into a church, had this divine feeling in your body and been like, something's missing. Yeah, that's me. Like a lot of times I'm like, gosh, this architecture, wow, this vibration, wow, this sound. So the whale, right? Music, you reclaim life's magic and grow stronger in body and soul. And there's even a mama and her baby on the card, which is a bond that has been such interestingly broken in Western culture a lot, in so many ways. I mean, every day I choose to like work out with my kids or do stuff with my kids, like not separate myself every single moment from my kids. I feel like I'm doing something revolutionary in this world. I really do. And music, sound, and vibration, how that's kind of been taken. And when it's so simple, like I just was humming right before we got on this and I was like, dang, like, gosh, I feel so more like myself. So that's what I just want to leave here, those pieces of the sounds that have also been kind of taken, even the sounds of primal, like bringing something into light, like form. I mean, that's sound. I had a daughter in a hospital and a daughter in a birth center, and I felt very weird screaming out and yelling, the first time around. I did it anyway, but it felt like I was breaking lots of rules. And the second, it was like, well, what else am I going to do? Like, she's got to come and this sound has to be made. And so, yeah, all of those little pieces, those threads, maybe I drop them here and maybe somebody can pick one up. But I was so happy I pulled these cards. They felt dead on right when you started talking. So I have spoken. Love you guys.
I don't have a full thing to say right now, but while we're in this silent moment, I'll just pop in that it is interesting when you said the whale immediately, like whale mothers came through and um I mean it just and then you like whale mothers came through and then I feel like a lot of people have been weirdly, not weirdly, but like whales specifically mothers with their babies, they've been posting online. I've just seen it a good amount. Um but then that just makes me think of like mothers in nature too, just like how I don't have a full thought here, but just it like connected when you were saying like whales, whale mothers, and then just like how mothers take care of their young in nature. Um, and there's like an interesting where you were talking about the lioness, is interesting like care and nurturance and like protection, even with like this little baby chick was one of the mamas abandoned her egg nest because I was trying to move her to a safer space and she was like, oh fuck this. So we had some eggs in the incubator, but the mama hen that did stay and hatch them, it's so sweet because like you watch her with her babies and like you have this like mother energy, even from a little dino bird, because chickens are like little dinosaur birds. And she's, even though she's, obviously no match for me as a human in terms of like this is, I don't even want to say this, like I would win in a fight. Like I'm a predator, right? But she's so fierce and protective. And she also is a little bit sweeter because she likes me, but she'll peck and she gets really protective and like worried about her children. So even just little things of like observing like mothers in nature and like the both the care and the fierceness. And in terms of our studies, Roxy, Gabby, Mariam, with like the tree, I remember I was like, the mother or the feminine being in the severity pillar didn't make sense to me at first. I'm like, that one I felt should be switched, but it now seems so obvious in a way that like the woman in that feminine fierceness, the Sekhmet, the Lilith, that like fiery, fierce, severe energy in a way is more important for it to be aligned with the feminine, because for the masculine, I think that is a little bit of the switch, right? The masculine is associated more with like this fierceness, the fighting, the intensity. And really, it's like that almost the quiet solidness of men sometimes, where if they need to fight or they need to be strong, they will. But if they can actually hold less intensity, it's really powerful. And also for the women to be allowed to have that intensity come through when it's needed, but then return to like the other aspects of her feminine, is really just definitely something that I'm playing around with, I think, in my own life and like my observations. I am also going to offer something else into the space. Um, I guess it's a question for myself, but obviously with it being an offering to, I imagine I'm not the, by far not the only one who's navigating this, but in terms of in relationships, whether it's with your partner, if it's a male partner or in with male friends or the bigger, on a more global scale eventually, having the conversations or how to help men like understand in terms of our cycles and like how we're different from each other. I'm still having a little bit of a challenge in communicating it, I think, in a way where when I talk to all of you, for example, we're on the same page and we're cyclical beings. And was that in this? I don't know if that was this or if this was another call around Roxy. We were talking about cycles. Was that last week? We were talking about like cycles and yeah. And I feel like sometimes when I'm talking with women like you, it aligns so well and it reaffirms what I have either learned, what's intuitively come through my body. But then when I try to communicate it to my partner, sometimes, as amazing as he is in so many ways, he is a very male, fiery, action-oriented, go kind of human. And I still feel sometimes like I've worn him down in the sense of like, I'm in my luteal phase or I'm bleeding or I need to rest. And he's just like, okay, whatever you need to do, I want you to be happy. But I still feel like he doesn't quite like understand. And this could be partial projection. And I do think even on a subconscious level, there's this part of him that's like, that's fine if she wants to do that, but she could just push through, like, just get up and do something. Like there's still like this, I think, subconscious belief system there that I think is prevalent in the male mind in general. And I'm wondering, how do we go about helping that shift? First, in the sense of just like for men to hold the space, whether they understand or agree, not just being like allowing for it, to allow for it and support it. But deeper than that, I feel like there needs to be like an understanding and like a them helping educate, not just like, okay, yeah, you need your space and you're quiet, or you have your emotions are more intense today. Like, I support you. It still doesn't feel like quite enough to me to like be given the space or to be given the support when I still feel like there's a lack of understanding on a deeper level and a lack of honoring, not even intentionally, just because he or other men are in like very male bodies on different cycles and all that. So I'm going to pause there, but thank you for listening. I've spoken and I'm intrigued with what'll come through from you all.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for sharing, Elizabeth. There's like a thread there that I wanna, touch on, and then something Megan shared as well. But the first thing that comes to mind here is that I think throughout like the past century, we've been, as women, maybe into the male way of living, like in a more fast-paced phase. And I don't know, my heart's beating so fast right now, but the message is like to slow down, like to really just slow down, because we've also been like so influenced by that energy, and maybe it's like over a long period of time, but the more we slow down, like I remember my husband shared a few days ago that Mimi, it's really like powerful to me when there's like a charged conversation and you tell me to take a breath, like little moments like that. I think bring in that feminine aspect of slowing down and getting to know our cycles deeper. And then something that came up when Megan was sharing was about our voices and our throats, and how throughout history, we know we've been like silenced in many different ways, but like really, really accessing that voice in whatever form it comes in, whether through singing, whether through storytelling, whether it being like walking through my fears of like, why am I afraid to share this when I know I have a pure intention, So I guess like freedom in like the throat, and our throats are connected to our yonis, and it's like there's so much there, I think. And I think I know. So that is all for now. I've spoken.
I got a couple threads to pick up. I feel too really excited. I feel a sensation when I get into this group, and like I get different sensations. I'm not gonna like call it anything right now, but it's really interesting, the energy that flows through me in this space. So I'll just give some awareness and appreciation for whatever that new experience feels like in this space. But I always want to like dive down into really a low, simple place and kind of strip away and let complexity fall away. That's kind of my reason for being alive, I feel like. And just to pick up Elizabeth's some aspects, definitely the listening part, Miriam, really feels so part of this thread that I'm going to continue with. But that feeling of trying to convey to your partner, and that desire to convey, to like reach this point of understanding, I feel like is the call to go in. Like even our bodies is part of the physical experience. And sometimes I feel like sometimes we can get confused in where the present moment really lies. It really isn't in the five senses, at least the way that I understand so far. It's really like in the seat of the mind and what we're experiencing in this internal, deep internal landscape. And so sometimes even the present moment really doesn't involve what we're feeling now, because sometimes what we're feeling now is actually something coming up from an energy we activated prior. And so I think these things can shift and change depending on what kind of layers we're moving through within our own story and our own process, whether it's, you know, whatever it is. And even the body, I feel like takes a little time sometimes to catch up with what's happening in the deep internal space. And when you take the physical body with even if we just go back a few layers and just kind of forget about the physicality and the manifestation of this experience, and we just take the back to that masculine feminine relationship between thought and emotion, and the way those two react, especially in our times of our cycles and phases. I feel like there's a thread somewhere where we still believe that it's just, we can't even bleed in a feminine way, right? Like we don't need anyone really to understand us, because it's when we really truly understand and really dig our roots down, we can feel that we can show up with whichever way it feels. I personally experienced when I was cycling in that way, I was really experiencing them very differently than my sisters around me, which is fine. We're all calibrating to these different physical cycles. But even sometimes as a martial artist, we teach, these internal and external styles, which really come down to this yin and this yang energy, which is really what we're talking about here, is this feminine and this masculine energy. And we forget so much, my partner and I, when we're in this journey trying to convey and dive into these ways of exploration of our energy. We forget so much that even the physical body we reside in is the external manifestation of who and what we are, and that it's the thought, the internal dialogue. And when I find myself wanting to like have my partner meet me in this place, it's just funny because I really don't know if he ever really goes there with me. And I realized that I'm like, okay, this is an internal conversation. This is a dialogue that goes within. And so much of my working out conflict with people in my life really doesn't happen in the conversation we're having, but more what I'm saying to them in my mind paves that way, because that's like the most authentic, real space that is existing. So I'll stop there, but I just feel that same thing, Elizabeth, right now with my partnership and whatever we're going through is so connected and deeply related to this relationship between that feminine and masculine energy. And the physicality is so much and feels so real that it's so distracting. But it's the stuff that's already been seeded and planted and birthed. The stuff that's really coming through lives so far in here within the internal landscape. And it's scary to explore the depth of that internal landscape when we're healing on so many levels of it all. So just weaving that thread in. So I'll stop there. Thank you for listening. And I have spoken and I'm eager to listen.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that piece of like to the vocalization, but then also the silence and like the amount we can advance within our own personal psyche, and not saying everything that's on our mind or on our heart. But then at the same time, we're in this moment of like speaking after being silenced for so long. And I mean, same, I'm dealing with this with a male person in my life. And just on the way to this call, I was like in a personal quandary of like, what wants to be said? And really feeling like, okay, I mean, just in the most basic form, like there are things that I'm experiencing with him where I'm like, okay, there's like needs and desires that aren't being met. What is the way to go about that? That is like not gonna shame him or put him down. Like we're at a very infantile place in our relationship. He's under an extreme amount of pressure. So I'm like not taking it personally, but also getting clear with what my needs and desires are when it comes to romantic relationship. And I'm like, at what point is something said? And I'm kind of leaning more into like, I don't want to hold back. I'm not gonna withhold any speaking from like shame or fear, but I am a little bit defaulting towards like, I think there's some personal process for me to have and just like observe and be quiet and see how things play out over the course of the next week, and then understand better, like, do I say something? Because it's such a fine balance of just like saying it to say it and be like, oh, I'm liberating my voice, and then also kind of like word vomiting on the person and putting a bunch of our process on them. And especially men just don't work that way from what I've learned. Like women can like talk and talk and talk and work it out, and men are like, oh my God, you just dropped a bomb on me. And we're just like trying to talk it out, and it can actually get worse. And so it's really like a delicate dance of that, like holding the seat of the queen. And I love the book, The Queen's Code, because it's really good about this of like knowing how and when to say what, so that, it's not like a manipulation or self-sacrifice, but being able to be like, what's the desired outcome here? And if it's like connection is the desired outcome, then sometimes just like talking to talk isn't the best approach when dealing with the gender, the male sex, It's a delicate dance. Because then on the one hand, I'm like, well, I can totally hear the part of me that's like, I've compromised my wants for so long. Like, I'm just going to say what I want. If it's not happening, I'm going to let it be known. But it's like, I don't actually think that will be useful right now.
My partner is constantly being like, that was a lot. Can you say it again, but like less words? And it is that balance of sometimes I have to just get out what I'm saying, and then I come back around. So what I'm saying is blank, but I try to do that beforehand when I can, because that's exactly what happens. He's just like, I see his brain going like, I'm trying to listen to you because I know it's a thing for us, but like, I don't know what you just said. There's so many words. Aw.
Okay, I wanted to pop in here first. Can you guys hear me? Okay, does this sound good? Okay, cool. So just
talking about this particular thing, there are so many things that are so magical from each and one of your guys' shares. I feel so many like archetypes too coming through. I think it really started with like the whale, and then that got me thinking about like grandmothers and crones and the importance of like uplifting them and like really going beyond like this ageism and like the thing that we have in our society that kind of discards like old people and the wisdom that they hold. And then I started thinking about like the ocean and the depths that it holds, and like the feminine womb, like everything that comes through the ocean, like its vastness, its power, its waves, and it's just wild nature. And then I started thinking about mermaids, because obviously if you're going to think about oceans, you gotta, and whales, like mermaids come through. And then I'm thinking about the voice and how, you know, if we think about the Little Mermaid, like her voice was like taken from her, and you know, she went through a whole thing, but just like really speaking to the power of the voice and how a mermaid can like navigate the depths, but then also like come to the surface and be in both, like be in the depths, but be on the surface, and use the power of the voice to really like translate things. And then with this conversation, my mind is like all over the place, and there's so many different like things I want to go down. But a personal thing came up for me too with Elizabeth's share with like men and understanding us as women in our nature. And I guess I wanted to quickly like share a story. Like the partner that I'm with, he's not in like, he doesn't go to men's circles. He's an engineer, like, you know what I mean? So he's very like left, right, whichever one is the one that's like very like linear and logic. Left, thank you. I know they like switch, so I always get like confused. And I really got him to understand like my cycles and my nature through just being super visceral with my language. And I think that is something that, I don't know, I heard this thing where people who are, I don't want to say men, but like masculine dominant, masculine leaning into that kind of energy, the work is very much about like deepening into like empathy and compassion, while people who are very feminine leaning is very about like developing that like strong center of like self, you know? And so I guess where I'm going with this is that like I had a mindset of like wanting to bring him into my world through the power of language and words in a way that felt like he could take the thread and follow it. And this is not something that happens through one conversation, you know? This is something that happened like with years of just like being honest about where I am at like in my body, and really making it about myself. And so one of the things that one time I said to him was I was on my moon and he wanted me to like go out with him and his friends. And I looked at him dead in the eye and I was like, I can't do that. I'm bleeding from my vagina right now. Like, do you know what it's like to bleed from your vagina? And he just like kind of looked at me stunned and was like, huh, yeah. Like, and I was like, can you imagine like bleeding from your penis? And he was like, yeah. It was like, you know what? Yeah, just go do your thing. And I was like, thank you. Because he really wanted me to go out, like da 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 da. And I just like I wasn't there energetically. So that's what I mean when I say visceral language. You know, sometimes it's like you take them into like the body and like allow them to feel give them an opening of like what it might feel for you, you know, speaking from your own personal experience. So yeah, that's I have spoken. I know that was like a lot. But thank you.
That was beautiful. It's a perfect place to jump in. What a beautiful woven conversation we're having. It's always such a delight to just show up on these screens, on these calls. Even if I arrive a little bit late and didn't necessarily know what the prompt or the theme was, and just intuitively grab one of my Oracle decks, and the first card that popped up was Release, which feels really aligned with just the collective pulse right now and everything that has just been said. And also knowing that and recognizing that we are in the astrological sign of Cancer right now, who is the mother of the zodiac. So we are inherently in yin right now. So this conversation feels really, really alive. I would love to just read a little portion of the release card because I feel like it was pretty aligned. So when you receive this card, it is time to let go and surrender. Let go of situations, people, and objects that no longer serve you. Let go of old, outmoded, self-limiting beliefs that drag you down. This is a time of stripping away superficial distractions until you reach who you are at your core. If you're holding on to old, it's difficult for anything new to come into your life. Begin to clear your home, both internal and external, and living environments of clutter. If you don't love it or use it, it's probably clutter. Clear it out. It's time for a detox. To get ready for the new, you must release the old. So I thought that that was pretty aligned. I've had a few conversations with some soul sisters the last few days around starting Saturday, and also feeling into just how I was feeling. A lot of emotions going on, a lot of sadness that I couldn't necessarily pinpoint what they were attributed to. And after a moment, I decided that it wasn't personal to me, that that was probably the collective pulse. And that in itself started to make me feel a little bit better. And then I actually started having conversations with a lot of women who all kind of gave me the exact same narrative. So just allowed myself to hold it with as much compassion and stillness and moments of quiet and being alone and just going inwards, but not in my stories, not in my old layered beliefs and patterning, but just holding the quiet space of the collective pulse that has been for a while now really calling in the matriarchy, and not necessarily from a place of wanting to obliterate the patriarchy, because I think that's been part of why you started this, Roxy, and the invitation of the women coming together. I think there was definitely a time where women wanted to be against the men, and we were all rebelling and revolting against them and boycotting them. And I think we all now recognize that that's not the way to a better circumstance and situation and way of life. And like the beautiful conversations that all of you have been having with your partners, to be able to find ways of communicating, because it's not, we don't think the same way, we don't move through the life the same way, and there's still somehow ways to communicate to find a middle ground. And I truly believe that that's what's going on right now, and that the women are showing up with a little bit more tenderness and patience, and that the men are showing up with a little bit more openness. And I guess that's my prayer for the moment, for today, and for however long this needs to keep on going. I have spoken.
That's actually a really the tenderness and the openness like actually really captures one of the core things that are needed, right? Because I again just bringing it back into like my specific example, which is like microcosm of the macrocosm, right? If we as women can be a little more tender about things, it also creates the energetic field that invites men to feel comfortable being more open, like to it, and vice versa. And to some extent, it doesn't matter who does it first, but as we are meeting as a council of women, like, can we have that tenderness and, calling myself forward where it's like a combination of what you're saying and then Roxy, what you were saying as well about, oh my, I just had it and then I lost it. Oh, looking at yourself as well and bringing the tenderness in. I'm I was I'm hearing that like reflected back to myself in the sense of and the using your voice part. Oh, it's all coming together, right? Wanting to use my voice to not to speak up and like our cycles are important, bringing that back in history's like erased, that we're different types of beings, that we have our own power, that like our magic comes in a different way. Our cycles are what brings our magic into the world in some sense, and like bringing that back to light. And part of that is communicating about it, and you can communicate about it on social media, but I actually find it sometimes harder to do in your actual relationships with real people in your life. And finding that speaking up and feeling not swayed that he has a different viewpoint, and knowing that like, no, what I'm saying about my cycle is true for me, but also not doing it in a way that's kind of like attacking or defensive, like keeping that tenderness. Because I do notice that sometimes what gets triggered, and I don't know if that, Leslie, I know you were talking about these conversations as well. I don't know if this resonates, but I'll notice sometimes that one, I think I get a little bit defensive or sharp when he doesn't seem to understand, or like I don't feel like he's really honoring it in like the right way or in a authentic enough way, partially because I think a part of me is like unsure sometimes if he's right. I'm like, no, am I right? Like this flow, or like, can I push through? Or like I start questioning myself, which that makes me upset because I've had these conversations and I know how we as women feel. I know how it feels in my body. And then I talk to him and all of a sudden I start doubting myself, which makes me angry that I'm feeling that way. And it also feels almost like a survival threat. You know, those survival threats that aren't actually survival threats, where it's like, oh my gosh, this person I'm planning to spend my life with, there's like something that's not right here. He hasn't like quote unquote evolved enough. He's not like here already. And it's almost like a, a threat to the relationship on a subtle level, and trying to in the moment remember like, I have plenty of shit to work on myself. I'm aware of that. So in the moments where I'm noticing something that I wish he he was already at this space in how he's evolved, I have to remember that it's like, it's okay that he's not there and that it's not a threat to the relationship. And it's like, oh my God, I chose a man that isn't 100% doing all the things that the divine masculine should do in his most evolved iteration. It's like, wow, take it down a notch. Like you were only together one for a few years. We're all on our own journey. And I think I feel that that subconscious like survival thing kick in, both for myself in terms of my belief system and for him as my partner. And I think that's also partially why those relationships are sometimes really hard to have these conversations, because you're like integrating integrating your life with them. And it's like in some ways it's harder for me to have these conversations with random people if there's not that relationship foundation, because there's not that like desire to like stay in good relationship. It doesn't necessarily go as well. And also to some extent, if that guy over there doesn't feel that way, it's also like it's okay, that's your life and my life's here. When it's like my partner who I'm like entwining everything with and creating life with, all of a sudden it feels much more threatening and everything feels much more intense. And it's just helping me realize that bringing my voice in, but with tenderness and a visceral language. I loved that, Mindy. I'm gonna definitely try that. Like this is literally what I'm feeling right now. Um, but yeah, even just like, again, this is what's so beautiful about these counsel, like these little like nuggets of wisdom are being co-created, and now we all get to like try them in our own little lives and then bring back feedback about like how did that go, until we start accumulating like a tool set and resources that we have tried out that we can then share beyond our little experimental council letters, like doing some work to speak wisdom into the circle, but then actually try things out in our life. So I'm looking forward to trying out some of that, keeping the tenderness in mind and using the visceral language. I'm gonna definitely try those out, and keeping in mind the reflecting on myself in those moments if I can, because it's always hard. I can do reflection afterwards, but trying to catch yourself like in the moment of the conversation so that the conversation doesn't have to spike, or I don't feel that shift, which obviously never really helps the conversation. That's the work for me, at least. Like, can I catch myself in the conversation and stay in that tender, curious, whatever space, as opposed to having to have the spike, then reflect, then come back and repair? Like, can I break? That's if you can do the repair, amazing first step. Being able to reflect, repair, amazing. But like, can we then grow beyond that to in the moment be having that conversation in a way that doesn't then need repair as well? I have spoken.
That was really good. Can you hear me? I can't tell if I'm okay. So yeah, yes, very much, Elizabeth. That was really good. They often think of things with a martial metaphor. So bear with me for a moment. Like the power of being in your center, right? And all your power comes from the center. And I know sometimes things and experiences are kind of held by our basic beliefs and foundations of what this life experience really is. So with that being said, I'll tread gently in where I'm going. But I'll just share this one story that was really powerful for me. And it's not that I didn't understand the concepts and the ideas, but it really hit me on a profound level that changed my course for a long time. I have like a interesting relationship with my dad, and really we're really pretty close actually. We worked through a lot together in my wiser years of life, and he came to me one time completely out of nowhere and said, "I'm sorry I can't come visit you anymore. I just can't be around him anymore." And I was thinking, like, who is he talking about? And I realized he's talking about my partner. Out of the blue, there was no weird stuff happening between them that I was aware of, and it came out of nowhere. And it got to the point where, of course, I was heartbroken because I was thinking, oh no, this man I love is now rejecting this other man that I love. It was like this deep tug right on the heart. And this went on for about a month. He just told me, I can't come. I'll just get a hotel next time I come and visit, and I will visit you from there and keep my distance. He felt in some way, he had his own story about why this was all happening, but I was like, okay. It was so jolting to me in my reality that I pulled way the fuck back. And I was like, what is this within me? What's going on within me that I would create this exaggerated conflict out of nowhere? And honestly, I don't really know why, the timing and all the things, but at some point after a month of kind of stewing, and I found myself going into story about my dad's trauma and what I thought I knew. And then at some point I went back, I was like, no, that's me trying to escape from my own mirror. Somehow I'm getting caught into the external story, right? This is his deal. And I kept kind of filing it under, this is his deal, and me trying to problem solve out here in the illusion, right? And then I finally was like lying on the floor. I think I had like just had it with the confusion, right? And I'm like, kind of like, if you saw it, was like an adult temper tantrum. Like I went through some weird stuff, like laying on the floor or whatever. Even my partner's like, whoa, like what's happening, And it fucking hit me. And I realized there was this part of me still that had not committed fully to my partner. And there was this like always little spot right in the back of my being, like, well, I don't know if we'll be together forever. Like, maybe not. There's always an opening there. And right when I made that connection, it was like all this stuff broke away. And it's just tiny. It was just a tiny seed of lack of commitment, lack of acceptance, lack of whatever, right? Filed all my kind of compartmentalized all my struggles in that little area, you know, to almost to give myself like that freedom of always choosing. And when I even voiced it to Abraham, my partner, he was even like, whoa, like, really? Like, that's how you feel? And I was like, yeah, don't get distracted. Just let me like connect these pieces. 1 hour later, my dad calls me and apologizes to me and says, I'm really sorry that I was making you choose. Can we just pretend this never happened? There was no other logical connection for this to occur. My dad's an Aries, just for a little background, like he doesn't do that. And so sometimes life and physicality is so big. This whole thing with masculinity and the violence in women, it's so big and it's so real and it's so painful. But these tiny little shifts from the center reflect out 100-fold. And so just bringing back that potency and power of a tiny shift within creates so much magic outward in our relationships even too, because they are so big, because they're like calling us forward, like this is an issue, but it's not out here. It's just not out here yet. Maybe not yet. So that I've spoken, and thanks for letting me like share that story, but it's big for me. So
That definitely pulled a thread for me, and I wanted to share it quick, and it hints off of Bindi and the visceral language too. And the having the compassion and the ability to like look within yourself and see where the thread is meeting, like outside, where something is coming outside that maybe came from the inside. So and same thing with it being a dad story, which I really, really love, because I think that it's also very important. So the visceral language, when things that are taboo, you know, one of the things that are taboo and has been taboo for a long time, but maybe now we happen to be in the time where it's becoming less taboo, our cycle, right? Talking about bleeding out of your vagina, like out loud. Like this is stuff that was so taboo, you know, everything was hush, hush, hide it in a bag, make sure nobody sees it. Does anybody know you're on it? Don't let anybody know, because you push through, you keep going, you don't give up. This is the stuff I learned, you know, or listened to or heard or paid attention to. And never vibe it, right? We never vibed it. And that's why we're here, because we didn't vibe it and we chose differently. And I find that to be just badass in itself. So let's just like snap on that account. But side note. So another thing that's really taboo is that things that happen to women or happen within childbirth. So I had a miscarriage last year, and I had never had a miscarriage before or experienced anything like that. I had only experienced 2 childbirths naturally in ways that weren't necessarily perfect, but were perfect as what they were. So my thought process on childbirth was very different than it is now. And so when I had this miscarriage, I chose to wait. And this is very taboo in the place that we live. Most people want you to just go and get it taken care of. And that would be like having an abortion, and that's fine. But I chose to wait. And I knew I was supposed to choose to wait, that there was like a lesson in it. And your body will do it naturally. My body didn't catch it quickly. So it took quite a while. It took almost a whole month to almost like a month and a half for my body to naturally start the process. So it's a lot, right? And in the process, my dad was extremely present, and my mom was extremely present, as they always are. They're so wonderful in that way. And so there was a moment where it had been maybe 2-3 weeks that we had known that there was something going on, but now nothing has happened, and everyone kind of forgets, right? People get busy. That's the life we live. That's where we are. And I was demanded in those moments to be so present with myself, to pay attention what was going on with my body. And there was this one moment that my dad kind of threw a stink about an oil change. He wanted to do this oil change in my car. Now, this is all from love, you guys. He loves me, wants my car to be well maintained. It's very important to him. And so he wanted me to come to him, and I lived kind of far from him at the time, and he wanted me to bring my car. Now, mind you, I'm not leaving my house. I'm not going super far because I'm worried about what's going to transpire. When you have a miscarriage, you go into like childbirth, okay? And your body has to lose everything, and it's scary, and it's a lot. And I didn't know how to get through to him that like, I can't do this right now. And he was getting kind of frustrated with me. And this is where the visceral language came in. I flat out said exactly what was happening. I said, I have a body in my belly that is not alive, that has to leave my body. And it's going to happen with a lot of blood. And it's going to be a lot, Dad. And I can't leave right now. And I love you, but I can't. And I said it kind of frustrated. And I definitely was very mad. But I'll tell you, dude, the amount of healing in my relationship with my father that occurred instantaneously from me choosing to see the tenderness behind what he was asking me to do and also giving him the chance to understand. Wow. And I'm not going to say that the situation got easier. It only got harder and scarier, and it was a big deal. And it's definitely why I am where I'm at this moment. It's been an interesting portal, but I share that with you because this conversation has been very, very, very Cancerian and very, 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 very rooted in tenderness. And that is one of the most vulnerable and tender moments I've ever experienced for myself and for him and for everyone around me, because I had to constantly explain to people what was going on. And because they just are thinking, oh, you just go in, you get this taken care of, you keep going, you keep moving, you try again. And that was not where I was at all. I was slow moving in the process. And it didn't go exactly as planned. And it wasn't as, it didn't happen. It did end up being threatening, life threatening and things of that nature. But you know what? I wouldn't take back a single minute. And I learned a lot about the people around me because I had to tell them the truth. And I had to say it in a really simplified way, because if I tried to get too poetic, too mysterious in my way, it didn't land. They didn't understand, and they couldn't help me. They couldn't be there for me. So that's something that's important, I think, in this time frame, and in what we are choosing to carry out to do here by holding this prayer is that we have to simplify. I really love that, Leslie. I love every time you say that you're somebody who comes and you bring something from like a simple, clarified way. It lands so well. And I appreciate that. And I've learned a lot from that by listening. So thanks for listening, you guys. I wanted to share that because that was something that felt important, visceral language. And I haven't really shared that in many places. I've in friendships and stuff, but this feels a good spot because that's a taboo subject. It's another thing that's hidden, that's very real, that's happening every single day and more often than you think. And it is not simple, especially if you wait and let the body move forward first before going and intervening in any way, which is kind of where we're wanting to be, And I would still not take it back, y'all. I still would not go first and get it taken. I wouldn't. No, it made me who I am. I would not take a single second of it back. So yeah, I've spoken, but this conversation has been so good, you guys. I'm like, we stepped into some new level, man. This is epic.
What's coming up for me as we start to come in for a landing is really that quote, like, love is patient, love is kind. And I'm loving what is also in the chat, like how Bindi, you acknowledge, like when we call us back into the body, we are calling us back into the mother. And just to kind of summarize what you wrote there, Elizabeth, like the piece around creating trust with the men, like being able to communicate. And I think what I'm gathering is like, yeah, like what at the end you said, I want men to learn to trust us women deeply as well, even if it's different from what they feel to be true because of how they feel it or what they think in their male bodies. And I think like part of the process of establishing that trust is establishing safety, and it's, I think we've spoken about this previously, like it is whatever, fortunately, unfortunately, we can put a charge to it. However, it is what it is, that it's our responsibility to kind of lead the way in that. And like we're only going to be disappointed if we have this expectation for them to just like get it, or that we're upset because they're what? They're results of a system, of a broken system. And so we're going to hold that against them, rather than just like coming like patience, loving, tender with ourselves first and foremost, and then like bringing it to them, whether it's about our cycle or about miscarriage or just about any odd little or major thing, to be able to approach from a place of like how, like that's what I'm walking away from today with, like, how can I create safety here so that then there can be connection and a deepening and more of a mutual understanding. Yeah, and we'll give it like 5 more minutes if anybody else wants to add some completion words. And the other thing I'll add is, in the Queen's Code, one of the things Alison Armstrong refers to is, she's like, ladies, stop treating men like hairy women. And I think that sometimes when I'm like relating to men, I'm like, okay, not a hairy woman, not a hairy woman, completely different creature. I have to approach you differently.
I mean, that's actually, and it's like reflecting back both ways, right? Like, if I want that from, like, my man, from our men, then we also have to do the same for them. Like, where are the places where I can, what is the word? Like, I can allow myself to be led, especially as like a woman who's like, historically, I can take care of myself, like that whole like New York City independent woman kind of thing, and like coming into a relationship of, okay, where can I soften and allow myself to trust my man? So like when it comes to my cycle, I don't need him to tell me what I should or should be not be doing. That is like my area of my body expertise. But like, where can I, even if I have a different position, point of view, feeling about it, or I would do it differently, like, where can I be like, okay, I trust you to lead us, our life. I trust in your male body. This is what's right for you. Like, trying to find ways to do that, partially to model it, but more just on an energetic level to create that safety and that trust. And like, I want to be led. And that's not like I think it's also like getting rid of, coming back to your question, actually, Roxy, about how the feminine's been erased, but it's also like, we've swung that opposite way with like feminist movements, like, for as good as obviously the intention is, like the whole like, I don't need men, don't tell me what to do, that whole thing of like, okay, again, coming back into that middle piece where it's like using our voice, unerasing, bringing back the feminine and all that, and also the masculine coming back into that space. So yeah, it does feel really important that we keep coming back to, what do we need, how can we call the men forward, and then right the same exact moment, like, and where can we call ourselves forward in that same example that we're talking about, like what can we do, especially since if we're meeting as women and we're willing to take the first step, like what can we do to start shifting that, as opposed to putting it on them to shift first. Sometimes they need to, and it needs to be called out, called up, and other times it's like, okay, well, what can we do to just start the shift, regardless of whether we should or should not be the first one. Someone needs to be doing it,
Exactly.
like who cares? Someone needs to step forward and try to do it. So let's try to do it.
Any other closing words from the circle of wise women?
I would love to chime in real quick, just to express gratitude for this place. I think that it's been such a consistent pulse, and although I missed the last couple of ones, just to come back into this and drink from like what we are creating here has been so nourishing. And so I just wanted to thank like each and every one of you guys for sharing what you've shared and showing up. And for me, I've been like transitioning, so it was easy for me to like not join, and be like I'll just join next week. And yet, like choosing to join this and choosing to like enter into this like liminal space with you guys has been like super magical, and I'm just so grateful for it like every single time. So I just wanted to express my gratitude.
Beautiful. Well, with that, we'll wrap up for this week, and sending so much love and appreciation to this group. And yeah, I'm also loving the consistency and the fluidity and the way the conversation is building on itself, and looking forward to being back here same time, same place next week. Also, I want to plug tomorrow we're doing a session with Inheritance that's open and free to all. It's going to be with a guest speaker, Aubrey Morgan Yee, who's part of our Oracle clan and who is an absolutely stunning author, mother, futurist, activist. And at 2 p.m. Pacific time, she's going to be doing a session about futures and systems change and an interactive process about like taking your seat in the revolution. And it'll just be like about an hour, and no doubt is going to be epic. So please be welcome to join. It's on the calendar in Inheritance. And then also, Megan, if you'd be open to posting a picture of those cards, because those were epic, and I'd love to read the full description of them. If you can post those on the feed, that would be great. And I think Bindi was affirming that. Awesome. Okay. Awesome, everybody. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.